Okay, Marcel, I'm going to come to you. You put together the World Bank presentation, which I don't know if everybody's seen, but certainly I was studying it before we met this morning. Mircea said in his opening statement this morning that he wants Constanta to become the engine of Romania's eastern flank. What are the aces in Constanta's pack? I mean, what has Constanta got that will enable it to become that engine, as opposed to Iași, for example, which is probably the main rival it would have for supremacy in the east of Romania, as it were?
Thanks a lot. Until we get the presentation on. Important to set the context a bit. The World Bank and Constanta City Hall have signed, I think, a year ago, a technical assistance contract, which for us as an institution is a bit of a world premiere. We do have technical assistance contracts, but this is the first one that we signed, one of this magnitude at the local level, which in essence signifies to us, and we hope not just us, the fact that the City Hall is serious about revamping itself. Part of the work that we're doing, and we're obviously looking at some of the plain vanilla things, strengthening of capacity, focusing, identifying priorities, improving quality of life, focusing on urban interventions. Some of the stuff we do all over the.
Can I just ask, the partnership you have with Constanta, did you go to them or did they come to you? How did it come about?
That's the wonderful thing. This is not something, it's innovative in the sense that we didn't know, since we don't have something of this sort at the world level, we didn't know how to do it. And it's Constanta, one, took the initiative, two, sorted out all the legal mess, and Romania legal mess is a legal mess, more than mess anywhere else, to figure out how to make this work. So they took the trouble to write to the various ministries, the public procurement agency, and so on, to see what is possible, how is it possible. And we were just faced with the fact where they said, we're ready to go. So we said, okay, great. At this moment, we've signed a similar contract with the city of Brașov, city of Sector 5, and we have interest from various other municipalities in Romania and beyond. Basically, the Constanta model is becoming sort of like a model for us to engage at the subnational level. So it's a pilot. Part of the work that we're doing, as we said, is focus on some of the usual things that we do. But we think the most important thing is working with Constanta City Hall to help them strengthen their dialogue with the private sector. You can have the best infrastructure in the world. You can be connected to all the major hubs in the world. If you don't have a strong private sector, you're not going to perform. Well. So, from our point of view, this is the most important thing. And we're trying to also, through this work, to also change mentalities in Romania, because there's like some stigma about foreign investors. Foreign investors come and steal away.
Well, the mayor himself said this morning that he wants more foreign investors. So.
That's why we're happy to be working here, because it's like a different mindset. But I will only give you one example. Dacia, after being bought by Renault, has become one of the strongest players in the auto market. Right? This is like they have one of the fastest growing shares. They sell annually 300,000 cars. Lada, which was a much bigger company than Dacia at the moment of the transition, is not necessarily a global player. If anyone cares to wish how many cars they sell yearly, 2,500. So it's a big Russian company that now has become has remained a midget, largely because they said we're not gonna sell to foreign investors. And one thing that we say, a foreign investor doesn't only bring in capital, know-how, and expertise. They bring a few things that are like people don't realize. They bring a logistics and distribution network and access to markets. And to build an access to markets, to identify the people you're going to sell the stuff that you're producing to, takes years, takes trust. It cannot be done overnight. A foreign company comes and does this immediately. They set up shop, and they already have a place where they can distribute what they produce. So With that context, we're working now to figure out what is the competitive profile of Constanta. Since we don't have the presentation, I'll give like a flavor of some of the things we're working on. Romania and its cities are basically the main engines. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Europe and the world. This is more or less known. What people don't know is that the Romanian cities are the fastest growing in the EU. When you're looking at the 250 largest cities in the EU, Romanian cities are leaders. What people also don't know is that when you compare cities like Constanța, Cluj, Timișoara, Bucharest with Singapore in its boom years. So it's like we looked at Singapore between 1965 and 1980, and we looked at main Romanian cities between 2000 and 2015. And we see that like a much more rapid growth, it's like a more rapid growth pace. Cities are really booming. If you're looking at the history of economics, periods of boom like this, you need to exploit. They don't last forever. In the case of Singapore, it has lasted for more than 60 years. In the case of Romania, we don't know if this is going to last. So it's important to like take advantage of these years and try to squeeze as much out as possible. So we looked, of course, at Constanța, and we wanted to see what are like the things that set it apart. One, the port, obviously, right? It's the biggest port city in Romania. Its location, not necessarily the best. You have ports like Rijeka, Trieste, Thessaloniki. They may be a better location, but the Constanța port sets itself apart through its sheer magnitude. It's huge infrastructure. And room for expansion. And one of the slides that I had was, okay, so we've managed to beat technology. I'll go through. These are some of the numbers I talked about. Another interesting thing is when you compare Constanța to secondary cities, the aggregate secondary cities in other countries, you see that it's doing better than, on average, secondary cities in Poland, Lithuania, Portugal, Slovenia, Slovakia, Romania as a whole, Greece, Hungary, and so on. So quite well, like a private sector that seems to be burgeoning. Something is happening. Another important thing to notice, we've done a survey at the national level, and we've asked Romanians whether they would be interested to move to Constanța. In a context of overall demographic decline, the capacity to attract people is really paramount. That's what like investors are looking for too. The good thing is that 22.2% of Romanian, primarily younger people, said they would be willing to move to Romania if given the opportunity or chance. Another important thing for the hotel sector, we asked the average Romanian if they visited Constanța or Mamaia in the past 5 years. Half of Romanians, 10 million people, said they did. So this is like a market for the tourism sector that shows there's like significant potential for growth. Most of the tourists, primarily domestic tourists, but there's potential for Constanța to become an international tourist hub. Why invest? I started talking. So Black Sea Port, Constanța Port, huge infrastructure. You need to take advantage of it. Tourism infrastructure. You have a lot of capacity to bring lots of people here, not just Constanța, but the whole seaside, all the way to Vama Veche, is a potential for growth. And connective infrastructure. While Romania as a whole may not be doing like too well, Constanța is fortunate enough to have really good infrastructure. Maybe with the exception of the airport, where more work needs to be done. I'll go quickly. This you basically see that Constanța is one of the few cities with a ring road. It's like at the level of a like highway. Port is connected to the highway. The port is connected to the Danube. So a lot of investments that offer it already a competitive advantage. Obviously, you need railway, highway to connect it to the main markets in the west, but this has already been discussed. One thing that you should know, assuming there's like people here that are interested in investing in Constanta, or maybe people that can talk to people that are maybe interested to invest in Constanta. We've just finished with the City of Constanta an exercise to set up the list of priority interventions. Most city administrations or most public administrations rarely have a strategy. When they do have a strategy, if they have a set of priorities, it tends to be a laundry list of priorities with like no clear implementation deadline, no clear budget allocations, and so on. In this case, what we've done, we've worked with the City of Constanta to identify the capital investment budget for an implementation cycle. We looked in this case at the EU implementation cycle, 2014-2023. We looked at the budget executions and tried to like identify how much they can spend on capital investments. And from a list of like, where most cities have lists of like thousands of projects, we came with a list of, I don't know, maybe 100 projects, a number of clear priorities, where Constanta sets for itself clear goals, but also like monitoring mechanisms, sort of like putting itself in a position where it actually has like an implementable and realistic list of projects. We discussed this with the mayor, and he asked us like an interesting and important thing. He said, in addition to the public interventions, do map the interventions that the private sector is proposing. Sort of we have like a correlated view. So what you see in pink, the pink color, are proposed interventions by the private sector, either real estate, commercial, industrial, logistics, interventions that are for which the private investors have requested a building permit, plus two yellow areas that are designed for conversion. So like basically they need to be rethought, but these are large parcels of land that can accommodate future investments. The port I talked about, a major investment is planned, huge infrastructure which potentially could become even bigger. And I'm going to leave this on. We've discussed with the City of Constanta, also in the context of the Brașov, Bucharest, Constanta signing agreement, where they've decided as a whole, which I think it's something of a pilot in Romania, not just Romania. It's rare that three cities decide to cooperate and lobby for each other. But we've added the list of projects from Constanta, for which the other two cities like have decided to lobby, and we'll leave it here. Like maybe you'll become agents of change and lobby agents for Constanta. Thank you. Yes, of course.
I think the casino needs its own forum, actually, because I think it's a subject that if we bring it up, we could probably spend all day discussing. The Bucharest, Brașov, Constanta, agreement that, they've come to. The examples of, various cities in Romania, such as Constanta, on its own initiative, trying to, give themselves a kickstart. The fact that the commercial banks are ready, the World Bank is ready, the EBRD is ready, the IFC is ready. It does sound, and this is obviously not a forum for political points, but it does sound, going back to something Christian said, one of the problems we have at the moment is that we don't really have a coherent, functioning central government. Is that fair enough to say? Is that one of the? Is that the missing element? Is that what's?
If I may, one of our big mantras is, we say 19th century was the century of empires, 20th century was the century of nation states, 21st century will be the century of cities. If you look at like the economic output, who drives growth, it's usually a handful of cities. Having strong cities obviously is not good just for the economy. It's been talked here that 4 million Romanians have left the country. When the option is Romania or a different country, of course, it's not a good thing. When you have an option where, okay, Bucharest is just too much, but maybe Constanta is an option, it's a bit more airy, Cluj is an option, Timișoara is an option, then you can like stop the flow. one of the things we're trying to do is try to create a competitive spirit between the cities, right? It's like, okay, central government is not helping you, but you have lots of tools to your own disposal. You have what you need to do to become more competitive. You don't have to wait for Invest Romania, for example, to bring in the foreign investors. You can do this on your own. Figure out, come up with a strategy, start a dialogue. Don't wait for them to come. Be proactive and go towards them. Identify the high value-added investors that may bring in well-paying jobs to you, and create the conditions that will attract people. The moment you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strong cities in Romania, that's also like the moment where you're likely to see a stemming in the outflow of people, because people will say, okay, Bucharest is not offering what I need, but maybe Constanța is.